This is the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monte Mohr with Realty One Group Music City.
And I'm Chrissy Amundson here for Carey Ann Cyr with CMG Financial and my mortgage team.
Every week we'll be posting an episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
You can follow along and subscribe at talkmusiccity.com.
Got a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com. That's questions@talkmusiccity.com. Chrissy, I am so grateful for you. Have I told you that lately?
You have, thank you.
Blake, I am so grateful for you. Have I told you that lately?
Not nearly enough.
Blake and I just worked with some clients, longtime clients. God bless them. I love them. And I'm so grateful that I was inspired to help bring their thought process back to why are we doing this? Because sometimes you have to remind your clients what is it that they loved about, what caused them to, what was their why in this whole situation? Right. Okay, let's come back to why. What is it empowers you in this whole situation? Sometimes our clients will get, things will get cluttered and things will get frustrated because not everybody has the same goal between the buyer and the seller, and sometimes we have to bring them back to their first love.
Yeah. That fired me up, by the way, in a good way. Just by bringing them back to their why, it brought me back to my why.
Yeah, it's we're problem solvers, and we're here to help relieve the issues before the client even knows about the issues. Hopefully, in an ideal world, sometimes. But anyway, so guys, we're talking about one of the most important things you can do if you're working with buyers. If you're not working with buyers, then go ahead and hang up now. Okay? No, I'm just kidding. Because even I keep inserting the seller side of things as well since I got your attention. There's some really important nuggets here, please. So real quickly, this is Inman's article on how to show buyers you're worth every commission dollar. In the meantime, you're showing every seller that as well, because someday these buyers are going to be sellers, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me, when I got my license back in when we were carving on the walls. No, it wasn't quite that long ago, but it was back in
Hieroglyphics.
1983 or 84, something like that. It was 40 years ago. So I'll never forget my broker. He said, Monty, just work with buyers. Don't work with sellers. Work with buyers. It's a shorter relationship. It's more fun, and so that was my mindset. I didn't know about this whole list to last thing and all that kind of thing. I just worked with buyers. And it wasn't until afterwards I realized that, well, if you do a good job with a buyer, guess what? They're going to want to sell someday. And so I eventually, I saw the value in that, because there's no way you can leverage yourself if you're only working with buyers. It's a great place to start. And I still love working with buyers. I actually do. But so today we're talking about the 18 things you can be aware of, because guys, remember, people believe the messenger before the message ever matters. And you got to believe it yourself. That's where your belief starts, is your own heart. Okay? If you don't believe you're worth all that, guess who's going to buckle right out of the box? You are. You're going to say, yeah, I'll do it all. I'll cut it in half or whatever. And again, we all know that sometimes we have to do those things, but let's try not to anymore. And we have to, because once you hear this whole list of 18, you're going to say, well, dang, I'm underpaid. I'm sure as heck not overpaid. So real quickly, I'm just going to go through the topics here. We talked about education. We talked about advice, insight, ongoing consultation. We talked about accessibility and availability. That's a huge one. Research and tracking down information. What about this? What about that? We know those people. Strategy number 5, offer preparation. Number 6, 7 is offer negotiation. Finalizing the offer. Number 9, managing the transaction. Number 10, inspection and repairs. Number 11 is the topic of repairs, and how that this topic is usually if there's going to be a deal killer, that oftentimes is if we fail to manage the expectations on both sides. Please, that's so important. Number 12, appraisals. That brings us up to lucky number 13, managing title and escrow. Who's going to take that?
I think I'll take it away.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, number 13, managing title and escrow. These vendors are typically selected and paid for by the seller. Again, at least here in Tennessee, everything is negotiable. But with such a variety of companies out there, the consumer and the agent experience could vary considerably. Considering these companies are pulling everything together for closing, it is critically important for a buyer's agent to ensure they are communicating with the buyer to get what they need, but also to make sure that the buyer is aware of who will be reaching out to them and explaining the information they'll be asking for. Now, it doesn't talk about this, but it does talk about it just a little bit in the next segment or next part of number 13. But wire fraud and just fraud in general is a huge epidemic. I mean, it's just one of those things that's plaguing, our.
They should have another level of hell, I think.
I agree.
I mean, I'm going to talk to our Heavenly Father about that. Lord, there should be another level of hell for people who rip people off.
If you want to get money on a soapbox, ask about fraud and how it's plaguing our industry. But buyers might question why certain information is being requested, such as social security number, copy of trust documents, photo IDs. And here I want to underscore, in today's fraud-ridden environment, with suspicious emails appearing to trap unsuspecting buyers, sellers, and agents into clicking a link or opening up an attachment purporting to be a settlement statement, the buyer's agent needs to help vet and verify who the providers will be in the transaction. Oh my gosh. Well, and there's more.
There's gotten to be such a big deal.
And
such
more.
a big deal.
It's just,
I know.
The biggest thing here, before we kind of move on to what else is involved in the whole managing title and escrow phase of working with a buyer, is, man, the horror stories we have heard from agents in our organization alone whose clients suffered from wire fraud and lost tens of thousands of dollars because these criminals, is what they are, let's call it like it is, are pretending to be us. Another reason why I have made it an effort to never mention anything about where to wire funds. I leave all of that to the title company. I know our title company, Midtown Title, another plug for them, is getting better and better and better about communicating that kind of stuff, especially during the escrow portion of the transaction. But one of the I made the decision early on to never ever even mentioning it. I put it in text messages. I'm never going to tell you this. Don't trust anything from my business partner. Don't trust anything from my assistant. Don't trust anything from anybody in my organization. The only person you need to be reaching out to is this person.
Really, really important.
I wanted to underscore that.
Let me condense the rest of this, Blake, in this simple situation here. A long time ago, I learned the importance of the final thing that happens in that transaction, as we all know, is that closing attorney, that closing company. Please do yourself a favor and make sure it is somebody at a super, super high level. That's the last thing they remember. They forget about what you might have given up or all the things that you did and all the times you were available and all these things, because the last thing they experience many times is the last thing they remember. And that's why I'll never recommend a closing attorney until I have used that closing attorney multiple times, like I did with Midtown Title. Now, guys, I don't have a dog in the fight. You use whoever you need. You be you. But I'm telling you, it pays huge dividends in credibility and positive memories and hassle and effectiveness and all this stuff if you use a really, really, not the one who brings you donuts, okay? That's not the qualifier. It's the one that can help you, help lift you up and make sure that you look great in front of your clients.
And if they bring donuts, that's a bonus.
Who's doing number 14?
I think that's you, Mr. Mohr.
Is that me? Okay, super. Managing the walkthrough. Okay, guys, remember, a house looks different empty than it does without furniture. Okay, that's where all the things are noticeable. And so, anyway, managing the walkthrough. I'll share that real quickly. Any experienced agent in real estate knows walkthroughs are ripe for a plethora of new issues to arise. Well, I didn't see that stain on the carpet. Well, I didn't see that scratch on the wall. Did you see that hardwood where that chair was? These are the realities, guys. When they're not buying a new house, you got to set the expectation. Look, home's not going to look quite the same. It's got to be broom swept. Understand that, but it's not a brand new home unless you're buying a brand new home. So this is what we just got off the phone from our clients about is the shuffle, is the dance. They're closed. They have to have the money from one of them to close on the other one, and these buyers want them out sooner than what they want to be. And anyhow, you've heard the situation, but that's part of what you're managing. It's really important to be proactive rather than reactive. Okay, here's the details. Whether it is the seller who is still moving out, has left the property in a mess, put garbage and unwanted items in the garage, cut the power off, which caused the ice cubes. Oh man, I've had that happen where stuff rotted in the refrigerator because anyway.
Yeah, this is very specific. Ice cubes. This must have happened to someone.
Let the lawn and landscaping go before closing. How many times have we seen that? Stopped pool service. Oh boy, that sucks, especially when frogs are rolling around out there. Caused a host of move-out damage issues, including carpet stains, scratched and chipped floors, drywall. Miracles often must be worked at the 11th hour. Blake, can you relate to that?
Oh, yeah. I'm a miracle worker.
As the agent is frantically sending photos of the evidence to the listing agent and trying to run down estimates to clean, fix, or repair the damage. Some issues cannot be easily fixed, such as a floor being scratched, chipped, and so forth. You get the picture, guys. Again, what we're trying to do is help you build up the arsenal of your personal conviction of your value. Okay, it's of your value. But if you cannot articulate, first of all, from your heart that you don't truly understand or you haven't thought about, what happens, and each one is different. But if you're not able to articulate it properly, then somebody may challenge you about your value. Okay, some listing agents simply shrug their shoulders and say, "Hey, too bad, so sad." The buyer is irate and does not want to close with the property in that condition, despite whatever disclaimers may be in the purchase agreement. The other day I got a phone call from one of our top agents because she called and said, the tenant won't move out. What do I do? The people closed on the house. The tenant was supposed to have been out the day before, and they got there and the tenant's still there. And I said, at that point, only thing I know to do is unfortunately get the cops involved if you can't bribe him or something to get him out of that house. It was funny. The next day she told me that the guy, she had her face on the sign, and when she got back, he had scratched her eyes out of the sign. I mean, just being mean. Anyway, with everyone's back to the wall and the pressure on, the buyer's agent has to figure out a way to make it right. Sometimes that means them coming out of pocket to deploy a cleaning crew. We've got one going in the house tomorrow, or other repair people to just make things right because the listing agent and seller have checked out. Oh, that's so frustrating. But you got to do the next right thing. Remember, this is future business or not. Most sellers or buyers, consumers say they would use their agent again, but many times that doesn't happen for other reasons, but I won't mention it right now. But the point is, make sure they have run out of reasons not to use you because they know that you did the right thing. Chrissy, managing the closing. I know you're good at that.
Well, like we talked about, this is kind of the final thing. So if everything else goes perfectly, but the closing goes terribly, that's what they're going to remember, right?
That's right.
On closing day, the buyer's agent needs to ensure that all keys and access cards or fobs to the neighborhood amenities, garage remotes, security and garage codes, as well as any other specific information about things in the property are provided to the buyer, and that the listing agent has removed the lockbox and signage accordingly. Think of it as like the cherry on top, right? You don't want to close on your house and then not have keys to get into your house. So this little detail is an important one. It says, sometimes things go missing at the 11th hour, and the buyer's agent must spring into action to hold the listing agent accountable to get what is needed or figure out a solution to address them if they're missing. Buyers cannot rely on listing agents to ensure that all will be left in good order. So you have your buyer's best interests at heart, and you are managing everything all the way up until closing. You are not just hoping things go well, but you're making sure that they do. Depending on how the walkthrough went and if any issues were uncovered, the buyer's agent needs to make sure that all has been addressed before the buyer signs documents. And if not, last minute plans may need to be hatched for this. So we're coordinating all the way up to the end.
And even after the end too, which is our next segment. But yep. I don't know why I feel so impressed to say this, in this section, but make it a habit to be at the closing, period. There's some times and there's scheduling that doesn't allow us to be at the closing, but if you make it a habit to be at the closing, it's one of the most, intimate parts of the transaction, aside from showing the property when your buyers are like, oh my gosh, this is the one. Monty and I are just talking about the clients. they found the one. This was their forever home. It checked every single box, and the look on their face and all of that stuff. That was a really intimate moment. The second most intimate moment is when they're sitting around the closing table just like this, and they're signing those documents. There's going to be questions. There's going to be comments. There's going to be all of those things. And if you can't be there to just at least represent and say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to find out. And you're just kind of leaving it to the closing attorney. Granted, I know that scheduling happens. Maybe sometimes it's just not feasible to be there. There's a lot of moving parts. But if you're not at the closing, I have heard of stories of agents who are in the area, who live here, who were here at the closing and decided not to show up. Like, I wanted to shake the agent. So, like, what the hell? Like, why?
Yeah.
Well, it's celebratory. I mean, why would you work
30
that
minutes.
hard all the way up to the end and then not be there? I mean, you're showing an emotional support for them the same way you've shown professional support. I think that's huge, and I think they really appreciate that.
Oh, I think they totally do.
Let me add a little tidbit here, just again to make sure that you're getting some benefit of the old guy here. I see so many times, and I've seen it, and I hate to even admit it, I've seen some of our own agents do it, and I'm I'm not sitting around with a hammer saying, hey, you got to do something, but be familiar with that closing statement. Okay, yes, you got a good person. You've chosen a great title company, closing attorney. By the way, it is good to use a company who's actually using attorneys. No offense to closing agents, but an attorney is really great. There's some greater credibility there. And it doesn't cost you anymore if you go with Midtown, as an example. But do yourself a favor and make sure you have not only looked on the commission line for your closing statement, but that you're familiar with the overall numbers, okay? But also have your own copy. I'm still amazed sometimes of the number of closings I've sat in or observed, and the agent is sitting there next to their buyer or their seller, and they don't even have a closing statement in front of them. The seller does, and the attorney does. But then when an issue comes up, they're clueless. They don't have the facts in front of them. And my point of that is, part of your job is to be controlling the variables as much as you can. And when you're not familiar with it, because you don't even have the damn thing in front of you, it does affect your credibility. It does. And so that's why, I had to, every over the years, every closing attorney I've worked with, because they're just taking ownership of the situation. I get that, but I'm a proactive rather than a reactive real estate broker, and I want my own copy of this, okay? I want to know what the facts are, not just that I'm getting paid and not just what the bottom line is, but I want to be able to help answer and at least be aware if there is a question about the payoff, or that which is pretty typical, that we are prepared to share that. Again, it's an opportunity not to take the spotlight, because you're not there to try to prove your value at that point. You're there to make sure things go smoothly, and your awareness of each item can be very helpful.
Oh, totally. Our next segment is number 16, which is called post-closing issues. Just because you close doesn't mean it's all over. Now, granted, sometimes it is. Sometimes, no issues. That doesn't happen all the time. So preparing yourself that there might potentially be post-closing issues is imperative. Stress doesn't often end at closing. Like, what did I just say? Yeah. Buyers move into their new home only to discover that something may not be working properly. Thankfully,
and it'll be a dishwasher. I don't know what it is. It's like dishwashers know when people move out of a house. I don't know what it is about a dishwasher. And Chrissy, before I forget, let's make sure that all of our agents are going to get this presentation. Okay. But I think we should make this required listening to all the newer agents.
Yeah. Oh,
it's going to put them a year ahead of their time. Totally. Just having this information. Sorry for interrupting you, Blake.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. Thankfully, an inspection report documents what was and was not working at the time of inspection. However, a slew of issues may seem to come up that may just be a stroke of bad luck. The first person the buyer often calls is their agent as their 911, who they look to for help and advice. I've lost count how many times this has happened to me. And
please embrace this, guys. Okay, this is a chance for you to shine.
Yep,
don't look at it like, what the hell are you calling me for? Don't look at it like that. Yeah. That's what a lot of folks do.
It might feel like that.
Well, yeah, it might feel like that, but don't act like that.
Don't act
Do
like
not
that.
resonate that.
Their agent often knows just who to call to help the buyer through whatever challenge that are happening, which is also why having a home warranty in place is a great risk mitigation tool when that dishwasher goes out, when that refrigerator goes out. That was working just fine during the inspection. Like Monte just said, these things just have a funny way of knowing when there's a transition. And say, you know what, I'm just going to stop working now. As the buyer gets settled in, their mind will turn to all sorts of home improvement projects, and they will lean on their agent for trusted vendors and service providers to assist them with making their home their own. In some cases, the lawn they thought they were going to be able to tackle themselves becomes too time-consuming. I've been there. They once again will lean on their agent to provide a trusted lawn provider.
Do yourself a favor, have a list of vendors. Please, if you're new to the business, do yourself a favor and ask your broker if you don't have vendors in certain categories, okay? We try to empower agents with that trusted vendor list that we all share with one another. Remember, your goal is to be the top of mind. Your goal is to be the resource. Your goal is when they have let's say they have a carpet need, or a electrician, or a plumber, or a painter, or whoever, okay? Be that go-to person, because here's what happens. If they're continually coming to you because they say, hey, Chrissy, I know that you've always been able to answer us and direct us to great people. I'm calling you because of this situation. I need a good insurance person. We're going to change, or whatever the situation is. Eventually, this thing called the law of reciprocity kicks in, okay? What I mean by that is, if you've been there and you're there for them and you're there for them and you're there for them, and in their hearts they know they need to give back because you've been giving. He's walking out to the street pushing his garbage can, runs into the neighbor, and the neighbor says, yeah, we're getting ready to move. Guess who they're going to refer?
Blake Johnson.
The person who they feel that law of reciprocity needs to go to because you've been giving to them. Yeah, it wasn't real estate related. Yeah, it might have been an inconvenience to make a couple of phone calls, but do all you can do to be top of mind, to be that go-to person, okay?
Amen.
Well, Monte, like you said, most people said that they would use their agent again, but the most common reason they don't is simply because they forgot about them.
Right.
So this helps you not to be forgotten.
That's right.
So I love that. And that kind of brings us into our next piece of value we have here as agents. A buyer's agent must continually follow up from the very early stages of incubating to converting the prospect to a buyer client, all the way through property search, offer prep, negotiation, the entire transaction, and after closing. Our job in representing the client is to make sure that everyone else does their job. So back to being the ringleader of the circus, right? It's an all-consuming task that never really ends. And following up is the continuous lifeblood of a real estate agent's job. A buyer would be astounded if they received an itemized bill for the agent's time expended on all of the follow-up involved in a real estate transaction.
And this is talked about 3 different times.
Yeah.
Clients will be astounded if we calculate the amount of hours that we put into this, which is why it is so important for us to, even though we're putting in the hours, them to be quality hours. I think that's so important. I'm glad that reiterated. The buyer would be astounded.
Yeah. And I mean, think about that. From the beginning, we're following up with the agent who we put the offer into. We're following up for the showing. Even before that, we're following up with the home inspector for the report and the appraiser for the appraisal. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And that time spent even just making those calls, I don't think that they realize how much ringleading of the circus acts we do.
So there's something really important. It's on my heart. I want to make sure I share. So Blake, if you want to take number 18.
Yeah.
So what I want to share here, guys, is look, from the old guy's perspective, to me, we're fighting for our future. Okay. What I mean by that is if we continue to allow the consumer to feel like they overpaid for not a good experience, a bad experience, they're going to find ways around us. I said those words probably somewhere around 30 years ago. It was before the internet anyhow. I said that outside of a training one time because I've started hearing things and reading things and I started seeing speakers say that, the trust of a realtor is no higher on the food chain than, a used car salesman. No offense, Jim. I know you were in the car industry at one time.
I sold Mercedes.
That's what I'm saying. or the prostitute down on whatever road. Okay. I mean, honestly,
I did not do that.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank
no,
you.
but I'm being serious right now. Okay, guys, I'm being as serious as I can possibly be. I feel like we're fighting for our future. And what I'm referring to there is that if we do not insist that the consumer have as good a good experience as possible, that we had control over because of our expertise or lack thereof, they're going to find a way around us. And that's what I said some 30 plus years ago, is that if the consumer is allowed to feel like they overpaid for a bad experience, they're going to find a way around us. That is why we're fighting with tech companies for relevancy. That is why there's thoughts of AI replacing us. They're not going to replace me. I can tell you that for darn sure. But it's going to, because I've made that decision. Okay. I've made that decision. The people that I get to work with are not going to use anybody else, because they know without question that we give our hearts to every successful experience for them. So I think that's maybe summarizes the last part, and that's relationships. Actually, is you got to have that level of relationship that they never. This is my goal every time I work with somebody. And Blake and I just got off the phone with a client, and it brought tears to my eyes to be that real and that raw with them. But by doing that, because of his trust in us, we saw his whole attitude, his whole countenance change just like that, because he knew somebody had his back.
Yep.
So my heart's desire is that if you're in this business and you're serious about it, money is secondary. Service and honor and that experience for the consumer who has trusted you with one of the most important things in their life, and that's their housing, their home, where they create memories, where they create legacies. Don't take that lightly, okay? It's not a paycheck. That's the result of honor and service. That money will follow. Mm-hmm. Have the attitude that it is selfless, that they're here to help, in that process that's so critically important to them, okay? And if you'll do that, I know that you'll be blessed like I have been over the last 40 years. Real estate has been such a tremendous experience for this guy who has a high school education. I've earned millions of dollars in the process. I don't know that I've ever sold a home, though I've helped over 3,000 families personally make a buying or selling decision. I don't know that I've ever sold one, because people are not crazy about being sold, but they love to buy. And so anyhow, keep that in mind. The point is, I'm rambling right now, but the point is, put that service ahead of making the money, and the money will come like you've never seen before, okay? Because we're blessed in this occupation. Guys, is there anything else you want to share real quick?
I just love what you just said, a result of honor and service. It's not a paycheck. That's just a result of honor and service. And again, the whole distinguish, apples to oranges here. The difference between an agent and a real estate professional is the one who knows that and who walks with that and who's confident in that and who can, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to continue to write that down. And I'm going to reuse that because I think that's such an incredible, that's the difference maker right there.
Yeah.
I would just say that this value isn't something that you can tell people. It's something you have to live by. It's something you have to show people. They will know based on your actions. So live it, show it.
Yeah, know these things. I said, can you repeat them? Can you say them? Can you recite them and so forth? But really, I think it comes with, more importantly, is to believe these things, okay? And be aware of these things.
Totally.
So that you have the conviction and you have the understanding, the responsibility. And as you do that, you'll start building the authority. And as you build the authority, you'll start developing the trust within those people who interact with you, because they'll recognize that you are different than a lot of the folks out there that are saying that they're real estate agents, that you're a real estate professional. And that is going to make all the difference in the world. Folks, thanks for tuning in to the talk of Music City Real Estate. We're grateful for that. We look forward to seeing you next time. Be sure and dial in again. Again, that's the talk of Music City Real Estate. But see you then. Thanks so much.